By now, we've all seen charts like this. They show the exponential growth of the coronavirus. Starting from just a few cases, the number of cases increases gradually at first, barely noticeable in fact, and then the growth rate ramps up. From a single case in Wuhan last December, the number of cases worldwide grew to 12,000 at the end of January, 90,000 at the end of February, 850,000 at the end of March, and 1.5 million now. And that's at the time of recording. By the time you see this, the number may be 1.8, 1.9, even 2 million. This idea of exponential growth can be difficult for us to get our heads around. When it comes to numbers, we're used to thinking linearly. Last Thursday, on the second night of Pesach, we began counting the Omer, the number of days between Pesach and Shavuot. We count off the days one by one, from 1 through to 49. Each day is as long as the other. The numbers don't suddenly ramp up in the blink of an eye, and 49 days later, Shavuot materializes in full bloom. Counting the Omer fits with how we typically think about change. It's incremental, constant, linear. Exponential growth is altogether different. The best way to think about it is through the parable of the Indian king. The king was a keen chess player and offered a reward to any opponent who could beat him. A visiting sage took him up on his offer and asked that his reward should be a few grains of rice distributed like this. The king was to put a single grain of rice on the first chess square and double it over every subsequent square. The king accepted. After the sage had won the game of chess, the king ordered a bag of rice to be brought to the chessboard. He started placing grains according to his promise. 1 grain on the first square, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, 8 on the fourth, and so on. It soon became apparent that the king didn't have enough rice. On the 20th square, he would have had to have put down 1,000,000 grains of rice. On the 40th, 1,000,000,000. And finally, on the 64th, he would have had to have put down the equivalent of 210 billion tons of rice, enough to cover the whole of the king's territory with a metre-thick layer of rice. Such exponential growth is the driving force behind the coronavirus outbreak, and it's undoubtedly brutal. But exponential growth can be a force for good too. One way in which exponential growth has benefited us is in our very emergence as a people. On Seder night, we read, "As it is said, your ancestors were but 70 souls when they went down to Egypt. Now the Lord has made you as many as the sky has stars." The Haggadah goes on to say, "And the children of Israel were fertile, and they swarmed and grew more and more numerous and strong, and the land was filled with them." Just how large the Jewish population grew to is the subject of much discussion, but we are told that from the initial 70, a total of 600,000 Jewish men left Egypt under Moses' leadership. That means that in the 210 years in which we were resident in Egypt, the population grew at a rate of 4.4% a year. That's not quite a doubling over every chess square, or a doubling every 7 days, like the coronavirus, but it's still pretty rampant exponential growth. In fact, for those who like it, there's some numerology, some gematria hidden in the Haggadah. The words used in the Torah to describe the growth of the children of Israel in Egypt are b'ma'od ma'od. The numerical value of the word b'ma'od is 47, and the numerical value of the word ma'od is 45. The ratio of those two, 47 to 45, is 1.044, 4.4%, which is precisely the rate the population grew by. This form of exponential growth drives compound interest. Its power was recognized by Albert Einstein, who called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. The other way in which exponential growth benefits us is in the way it binds us as a community. We at Muswell Hill are a community of 400 families, but our strength is much greater than those numbers convey. That's because the number of relationships we cultivate within our community is a vast multiple of 400. In fact, the number of relationships grows non-linearly with the number of families in the community. With 400 families, we enjoy around 80,000 pairwise relationships within the community. Each new family that moves into our community brings not one, but 400 potential new relationships. Eventually, the growth of the coronavirus will peter out, but our growth as a community and as a people will live on, with exponential progression as its engine. Chag Sameach.